Hi everyone, welcome to Paying IT Forward. I'm Obi, and today I'll be talking about change management in relation to digital transformation. Now, change management is a massive area when it comes to digital transformation. And I quite like the definition of change management provided by the Association of Project Management, APM. And they say change management is the overarching approach taking in an organization to move from the current to a future desirable state using a coordinated and structured approach in collaboration with stakeholders. And basically, that's emphasizing that there's a lot of elements that you need to consider when it comes to change management. There's the stakeholder engagement, there's things like change impact analysis, there's change readiness assessment, and all that good stuff. Um, and like I said, is how you can bring all those things together to take an organization from its current state to a future desirable state where it's in a better position to achieve its organizational goals. So while I've said all of that, I think today what I want to do is focus on how to implement change management. I want to talk about how to implement change management and specifically talk about two major elements I think are very important to consider when implementing change management. And those two elements are configuration management and DevOps. Right. So, talking about configuration management, it's very difficult to do that without first understanding what a configuration item is. Now, according to IBM, they've defined a configuration item as any service component, infrastructure element, or other item that needs to be managed in order to ensure the successful delivery of services. Now, having defined that as a configuration item, configuration management is all about, first of all, identifying the relevant and correct configuration items. And secondly, maintaining the relationship, the integrity of the relationship between these configuration items as an organization or as a system goes through change. Now, when it comes to identifying the relevant configuration items, people tend to, by default, think of what I define as the technical configuration items. And, when you think about a CMDB, you're thinking about computers, switches, routers, and things of that sort, right? The technical configuration items. I think it's also important to consider the business configuration items. And these really are the requirements that capture the why and the intended outcome of any configuration management system. So they are very important in that way because they capture the context and they preserve that so someone understands why a configuration management system has been built the way it is from the technical CMDB side and making sure that it's aligned to the business goals or the business objectives of that organization. So it's very important that these two complement each other and these two things are captured, as an organization, practices change management and practices configuration management. Right. So the second thing we'll be talking about is DevOps. Now, DevOps is a whole host of things. It's a methodology that combines different tools. I'm sure you guys have heard of Azure DevOps, GitHub, Ansible, many tools and different practices as well when it comes to ways of working or engaging stakeholders. I'm not going to define that in too much detail. I'm sure you guys can, take your time and do a bit more research on that. But when I'm talking about DevOps, it's very important to understand that on a high level, DevOps is all about connecting the development of change to when change is actually live. So, when we talk about, although DevOps comes from a software development sort of bubble when it comes to building code, deploying the code, and all of that, you can apply DevOps in a more high level way because, when we talk about change in this context, we're not just talking about technology changes or software changes, we're talking about process changes as well. and things of that sort. So if you look at the dev element as the development of change and operations as, when change is actually live, DevOps is all about creating an efficient link between these two things. And why is it important to create an efficient link between these two things? It's because change is continuous. It's always happening. If an organization is 15 years, it's probably gone through at least one change per year, or many more changes per year in different sizes, small changes and big changes. So when you're constantly making changes, you need to create an efficient flow from how you develop change to, when you make that change live, then from that original first change you've made, you need to develop further changes from that. Then that becomes live. Then from that, you make further changes and so on. I think you get the idea. So that is the whole concept when it comes to DevOps. And why is it important when it comes to change management is because it helps you to manage the evolution of change in a very, very efficient way. Now, earlier we were talking about configuration items and how it's important to maintain the integrity between those configuration items. That is what DevOps helps you to do. So you make changes, you deploy those changes, you monitor those changes, you see how those changes are actually, the effect of those changes in real time. You compare that to your expected outcome from your original, configuration, the business configuration item I mentioned. And then you can say, okay, this is not hitting the bar. Then you consider that in your next deployment of change or your next development of change. So effectively, DevOps is a combination of practices and tools that helps you better manage the evolution of change in an organization. Right, so it's time to round up this video. And today we've spoken about change management when it comes to digital transformation. And we've made mention of two very important concepts that need to be considered when implementing change management, which are configuration management and DevOps. Now, we've highlighted about configuration management, the need to consider both the business configuration items as well as the technical configuration items, because that gives you a full picture of the change. You're able to understand the why and the intended impact of a change when it comes to the business configuration items. And you're also able to capture the technical configuration items to understand technically how a service or a solution is achieved or deployed. The second part of that, we've also spoken about DevOps and why it's important to change management, because it's the glue that helps you manage the evolution of change effectively. We spoke about the fact that if you look at the dev part as the development of change and understand that change in an organization is a constant process. So you need to manage when you're developing change to when that change is live, you learning from that change, capturing the relevant configuration items when it comes to business configuration items, being able to make reference to, the previous versions of that and taking that into consideration in the next iteration when it comes to developing new change, whether that being processes, technology, software, whatever it is. So that kind of covers everything we're hoping to talk about today when it comes to change management, implementing change management correctly. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Also, it's also great, like one of the major things we've spoken about is interacting in the comment section. If you need more clarification or if you have an idea or an opinion or something I've said, please feel free to drop your comments and interact. And don't forget, it's PITF with OB on all social media platforms. So go over, to Twitter, Instagram, and follow, like, share, subscribe, and watch the space for more videos.